Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. We got to talk about Doctor Sleep. So, Doctor Sleep, for those who aren't aware, this is first off, it's a book that came out several years ago now, and it is a sequel to Stephen King's novel The Shining. But this movie is also a sequel to the 1980 film by Stanley Kubrick that came out, The Shining, that a lot of people know that Stephen King famously did not care for because he felt that it strayed away from his original novel. So, Mike Flanagan had quite the task here with not only adapting a piece of King's work with, trying to be respectful of that, source material and stay true to that, but he also was making a sequel to the, classic Shining movie that came out in 1980 and trying to appeal to the fans of that film as well. How did he do? Let's go ahead and talk about it. So first off, Mike Flanagan, he's someone that I have been following in horror now for a little while. He's done, several different, movies, shows as well. He did Oculus. He did Gerald's Game on Netflix, which is something that I really liked. He also did The Haunting of Hill House. So he's definitely been slowly making a name for himself in horror, and now he gets to tackle a much bigger Stephen King property with Doctor Sleep here. So first things, as far as like the things that I like about the movie is that the camera work behind this film is simply amazing. Mike Flanagan, like I said, he is someone that I've been following for a little while now, and there are several shots in this movie that I went with one of my buddies, and there were a few times that I like leaned over and I was like, oh, like I really like this shot. I really like this shot. That's a cool shot. So he'll tell you, but yeah, there was several times that I was just like, wow, this is this film looks beautiful. Not only that, but just the way his characters, and we'll get a little bit more into detail about them in a second, but just the way the characters are fleshed out, I thought did a really good job with that, and that's something that he's kind of known for with with some of his films. He did a really good job with that on the Haunting of Hill House. So just overall, the set pieces, the effects I thought were pretty great as well. So just overall, as far as the directing part of it goes, I think that he did a fantastic job with this movie, and that's definitely something. If you haven't seen some of his other work, I definitely recommend you guys checking that out. Now, as far as the characters go, so basically, actually, we'll step back a second. Basically, the plot of this movie is, so like I said, it's a sequel to The Shining. We find, Danny, he's all grown up now. He's played by Ewan McGregor, and he's kind of, he's become like an alcoholic. He's trying to run away from his past because obviously when your father comes after your family, tries to kill you with an axe, you're probably going to be pretty messed up. So he's not exactly like in the best place when we find him, but he does, try to kind of turn himself around. And while he's doing that, he ends up coming in contact with Abra, who she is another person who has these shining abilities. And he comes in contact with her and basically ends up finding out that, she's super powerful, more powerful than he was, and that she has kind of come up on the radar of these group of people called the True Knot, I think if I'm saying that right. And they're led by this girl or this person named Rose the Hat, sorry. So basically this group is a group of vampires, and they go after people who have these shining abilities, and they steal their life force because that's how they're able to live for a long time. So Danny has to try and help Abra basically stop these people from doing this, so that way, he doesn't, they don't kill everybody that have these abilities throughout the world. So, yeah, pretty basic plot, right? So that's pretty much the plot of the film. As far as the characters go, like I said, Danny, played by Ewan McGregor, I thought he did a fantastic job in this role, in this movie. He's a really flawed character, so that was something, it's always more interesting when, there's certain flaws to like the character. And I really like, and I won't go into too much detail, like specifically what it is, but I do really like what they did, the way he uses his powers at a certain part in this film. I thought that was like a nice little like touch was really, like creative. So that was something I really liked about his character. But so it pretty much, a bulk of the film obviously like follows him. But then, like I said, he does meet up with this girl named Abra, and she is played by Kylie Curran, if I'm saying that right. Apologize if I'm not. Again, so a lot of times with, horror or just in movies in general, when it's, a kid actor, sometimes they can really kind of bring a movie down, or make the role kind of like distracting. I don't think that's the case with, with Abra. I thought that she brought a lot to this role. She was a really cool character. When she had to be scared, she was scared, but she wanted to be involved in a lot of things that were going on too. She wanted to tackle this, this group of these, this cult. She wanted to, take them down. So I thought she was a pretty badass character, and I really liked how she was used. And, tons of credit to this girl. I haven't seen her in anything before, but I'll definitely keep an eye out for her, moving forward. The last character that I want to mention is Rose the Hat, and she is played by Rebecca Ferguson. She is definitely a standout in this movie. I thought, as far as this role goes, I just thought she was probably the best villains, one of the best villains that I've seen so far this year in a movie. She just brought a lot of charisma to this role. This group, they're obviously, a bunch of like evil people, and they do a lot of really bad things to people, but the way she kind of just like carried herself, she was just a really cool, interesting character. And that was something that I think, really makes her stand out. And I think a lot of people are really going to think the same thing. I've seen, a couple other people mention actually the same thing already. So definitely keep an eye out for her. And she gets a pretty significant amount of screen time as well. So now, is this movie scary? I would say no. It's not really. If you're like going to compare one thing to kind of like The Shining, like, it's not as scary as The Shining was, I would say. This movie definitely has some creepy aspects, and there is some disturbing moments throughout the film. One in particular that involves a kid that I know a lot of people have been talking about. I won't go into too much detail, but there's definitely some moments throughout the film, and I do like Mike Flanagan's approach to horror. He's not all about like the jump scares and stuff like that. He's definitely more about building like the atmosphere, creating like tension and things like that. And I really appreciate that because, so many of the cheap jump scares in horror movies these days, they really suck. So it's nice to see someone come, kind of like that more classical approach. So it's not really scary, kind of has more of like a fantastical elements kind of to it. So I think going into the movie knowing that might make you, just not have these super high expectations of being scared out of your mind, I guess. And then as far as, do you need to see The Shining to see this, or to understand this film, I should say? I would say it's not required to see The Shining, because they do kind of give you enough backstory and kind of catch you up to where these characters are at and kind of what's going on. So you can understand what's going on in this movie. However, I think if you did see The Shining, like myself, like it has been a little while since I've watched it, but going into this movie, because like the third act especially, there's a decent amount of fan service, so there's like certain moments that you will, obviously if you've seen the movie, recognize, different nods to like the original film and things like that. So you'll probably appreciate that a little bit more if you have seen The Shining than if you haven't, obviously. So that's the one thing that I would say about that, but I think you can still have a lot of enjoyment in this movie if you haven't seen the original film. So overall, I really, really like this movie. And it's funny, actually, because I remember watching the trailers and it wasn't something that I was like, oh, like, I can't wait for this to come out. Like, actually, like, wasn't really sure what to think, when I first saw it. So went into it with kind of not really sure what to expect. And, man, this thing just delivered on all aspects for me. It's 2.5 hours, but it doesn't feel like that at all. Honestly, like, there was times where I was like, man, like, I don't want this to end. So, when a movie is, it's 2.5 hours long and you're not looking, wondering about the clock at all, and you want it to keep going, that the pacing and everything, they're doing a good job. So I had a really good time with this. I'm super disappointed that the box office isn't or didn't do well at the box office this weekend. I don't know if it's like the marketing or what, but I really hope that maybe the good word of mouth starts spreading and people go check this movie out, because I think like a movie like this, it deserves it. So, but let me know what you guys thought of the movie down below in the comments. As far as a grade for this movie, I'm going to give it a solid 9 out of 10. It's definitely one of my favorites of the year. But let me know what you thought down below in the comments. And then, have you seen the original Shining, or did you go into this movie kind of blind as well? Let me know down in the comments below. As always, guys, make sure that if you are new to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, as well as the bell button next to it, so that way you get notifications for all my future videos. And as always, guys, make sure to check back for more Pop Culture with Pat.